Welcome to Green TV, the show dedicated to positive New Deal solutions and the candidates and people who advocate for them. I'm Angela Trusty, your host for today. On today's show, we'll be giving you a preview of the March 2018 DC Environmental Film Festival. More on that later. Green TV is about Green New Deal eco-jobs for the economy, eco-capitalism, prices that tell the environmental truth. Green TV is about the green industrial revolution, green jobs, solar jobs, rail, wind, weatherization jobs, conservation and efficiency jobs. Green TV is about renewable energy, clean energy. Green TV is about building neighborhoods that are green, bikeable, walkable, and pedestrian friendly. Green TV is also about making sure that these communities have clean air and clean water. Rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America. Rail can move the country forward. Coming January 27th is a new film, Sacred Water, Standing Rock, which also is included in the DC Environmental Film Festival.
If sacred land can be taken over by corporations, then none of our indigenous communities are protected, including my own.
People are waking up. People are saying no more.
Society took our land away from us. We need to protect it.
I will stand and fight for this place.
There's no turning back for us.
Despite all of the hatred and genocide, we're still here and we're resilient.
I am not moving until every pipe is removed from the earth.
We cannot change the political system until the people control the land. I tell rise!
This looks like a powerful film. A great place to plan on being this March 2018 is at many free venues across DC and Virginia, where the DC Environmental Film Festival will screen fabulous, eye-opening films about our environment. The DC Environmental Film Festival covers so many topics: wildlife, water, energy, farming and food, animals, economics of the environment. A very major contribution was the screening of Cowspiracy. For viewing this and many other films, you can go to their website, www.dceff.org. And again, these activities are for all ages, so families, this is a great place to go. Animal agriculture is responsible for emitting more greenhouse gases than the transportation industry and causes unfathomable destruction of natural resources and habitats, yet it flourishes, mostly entirely unchallenged. This groundbreaking documentary, Cowspiracy, follows filmmaker Kip Anderson as he uncovers the most destructive industry facing the planet today and investigates why the world's leading environmental organizations have yet to tackle it. Despite risks to his personal safety, he offers a path to global sustainability for a growing population.
Do you think there should be any concern of us making this documentary?
Of course. If you don't realize right now that you're putting your neck on the chopping block, you know, you better take that camera and throw it away.
It's an environmental disaster that's being ignored by the very people who should be championing.
Let's look at the fundamental problem here.
No one wants to talk about it.
Because they're membership organizations, you know, a lot of them. They're looking to maximize the number of people making contributions.
The leading cause of environmental degradation is...
We need to address that as well.
It's not up to the Department of Water Resources.
Hard to actually target like one thing.
I don't necessarily know what it is.
There's suppression and mismanagement of information everywhere it abounds.
It starts at the local level, but then it goes all the way to Congress.
When you consider the devastation it's having on our planet as well as the oceans.
And we're in the middle of the largest mass extinction of species in 65 million years.
They can dictate the federal policies because they have so much
political power.
And one of the largest industries on the planet with the biggest environmental impact, trying to keep us in the dark about how it's operating.
That's the one thing no one talks about. Everybody goes around that.
Unfortunately, we are no longer able to fund your film project. We had a meeting, and due to the growing controversial subject matter, we have some concerns and have to pull out.
You're going up against people that have massive legal resources, and you have nothing.
A lot of people just keep their mouths shut because they don't want to be the next one with the bullet to their head.
I don't know that I would want to comment on that.
That was a preview again for Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret, directed by Kip Anderson and produced by Kip Anderson and Keegan Kuhn.
Climate change is on a complete collision course right now with civilization as we know it.
We've had lots of civilizations collapse in the past from environmental causes.
I'm certain climate changes occur.
Our responses at the moment are inadequate in terms of coping with these newly displaced people.
These are really the human faces of climate change.
Nature is now at war with us.
We're going to have to rethink climate change as being some remote environmental issue that the scientists will work out over there.
It's so huge. It's so big that's coming our way. It's almost beyond comprehension.
We are the same. Human race. No difference.
We're dealing with the fact that there's a gap between what the law provides and what the world needs. People cross borders all the time.
That will change all sorts of equations. When you get scarce resources, or if you get a change so radical that people can't function, you have huge displacement.
The threat of refugees as a consequence of climate change is an enormous national security issue.
Europe is spending millions to defend itself against immigration from Africa.
When the Pentagon begins to think about what might happen, that's a clear indication that we have to start taking something seriously.
This is not a 100-year or 50-year issue, it's a present issue. It already is affecting the price of food you're putting on the table. It will affect the price of energy that you pay for your home and your automobile.
We can meet this challenge. We can transition to a low-carbon economy.
We can invent our way out of this problem.
We ought to be able to come together, not red versus blue, but in a red, white, and blue way.
The challenge is no longer to save the planet. The challenge now is to save civilization itself. And that is not a spectator sport.
Another international issue that requires global leadership and thinking is climate change. Right now, about 145 million people live less than 3 feet above sea level in countries like Bangladesh, China, and the Philippines. And scientists predict the world's oceans could rise 5 to 6 feet by the year 2100. By the end of this century, worst-case projections have parts of Boston and Manhattan underwater. In the remote Pacific nation of Kiribati, it's already happening. Homes have been swept away by the rising seawater. Seth Doan visited the island nation, where the government is already making plans for its demise.
This fragile place is on the frontier. The island nation of Kiribati is in the South Pacific, just over the international date line. It's among the first countries in the world to get a new day, and scientists say it's among the first countries in the world to really feel the effects of climate change due to melting glaciers, rising sea levels, and extreme weather. This idyllic, remote place doesn't seem like it's on the front lines of anything, but when it comes to climate change, it is. We wanted to go someplace where climate change was real. Climate change so often seems like this long-term, long timeline issue where we're talking about sea level rise over something like a century. And we wanted to find a place where it was a clear and present danger. Kiribati is really on the front lines of climate change. It is, scientists say, one of the first countries in the world to really feel effects of climate change, sea level rise, and really one of the big concerns is extreme weather, which exacerbates things like high tides and creates real destruction. So much of Kiribati is threatened in the coming decades and century. You look at a huge percentage of the country is just a few feet above sea level. So this idea of sea level rise caused by climate change and the threats because of that are very real. What happened here?
As you see, the seawall is broken.
There was a seawall here?
Yes.
And now it's just flooded with water?
Yes, flooded with water.
It can be hard to recognize sea level rise when you visit a place for the first time. You start to appreciate it, though, when you hear from locals who say, my house used to be right over there.
My home right in the middle of the water.
Your home was there?
Yes.
We heard that a number of times where people's houses had been closer to the water, they had to move back. One woman told us, I used to be in a community of 10 or 11 families. 10 or 11 other homes were around me, but those people had picked up and left as the water got closer. It's interesting, we visited a school in Kiribati where for these students in school, climate change is not some academic subject. For them, it's real. What goes through your mind when you think about climate change in your own country?
I'm afraid, scared.
Afraid and scared?
Worried.
Afraid, scared, worried. Those are frightening adjectives. There are really more questions than answers when you talk about climate change here. Students say they think a lot about their future, they have a lot of questions about their future. When you think about the future of Kiribati, of your country, what do you see?
We think that our island will disappear.
Your island will disappear. Is there skepticism about climate change in Kiribati, just like there is in America? Yes. You might wonder how people in Kiribati could be skeptical of something that many there say they're seeing, they're experiencing, but the skepticism goes up to the very highest levels, right up to the president of Kiribati, who says we have other more pressing things to worry about, namely jobs and the economy. You might be wondering who people in Kiribati blame for climate change. It was a question we kept asking. Climate change is this big issue with this long timeline, and it's a squishy issue. It can be hard to tell exactly what's caused by climate change. One woman was very reluctant to tell us. We kept pushing her.
I know they're going to hate me.
It's okay.
America, United States.
She said, I can't blame Americans for wanting products, for wanting cheap things, often manufactured in developing countries where it is cheaper to do this work. She said, but for you Americans to have your nice things means that more carbon emissions, you fly on big planes, you drive big cars, and that all has an effect. And you might not see the effect in America, she tells us, but we will feel the effect here. Life is pretty simple in Kiribati. One gentleman we were interviewing told me that he was concerned about the idea of moving to another country because in Kiribati you didn't need much money to survive. Nature provided.
I want to stay here and die here because this is paradise.
And he said he was concerned that in other countries he would need more. He's used to nature providing, but the irony now is that nature may take away. Nature may flood out these coastal communities. One of my biggest takeaways from this trip was visiting this country, Kiribati, which scientists say is on the front lines of feeling climate change. We'll be one of the first countries in the world to really feel the effects of climate change. But in Kiribati, some had not heard of climate change, and many had some of the lowest carbon footprints in the world. These are not people driving gas-guzzling cars or flying on airplanes or even buying a lot of products that have been produced, but these are the people who are feeling the effects of all of that, who are on the front lines of this issue of climate change.
Where is Kauai? Here is Kauai. How is it the future of energy?
Batteries.
Batteries.
Batteries. Batteries.
Batteries?
Strategically placed batteries.
Also sheep.
They like the grass, they can get way underneath the panels. It works well.
Back to the batteries. In roughly 10 years, Kauai has gone from 6% to 42% renewable energy. Here's how it works. In the morning, Kauaians wake up, they make breakfast, take showers, head to work. There's not enough sun yet, so the island relies on diesel. By noon, though, solar panels help provide up to 97% renewable energy. Then, traditionally, it would be back to diesel at night. But here's where batteries come in. Big batteries, the size of refrigerators. Batteries made by Tesla. The more the island installs, the less fuel it burns in the morning and evening hours.
We're going to do more projects. We have one already signed with AES. It's going to be about twice the size of this project.
Kauai's not the only place going big on batteries. 2017 is expected to be a record year for adding battery storage. What is unique about Kauai is how fast they've done it. Few places in the US rely on so much renewable power all on one grid. Take it from this guy. This is Luke Evslin and his family. They live sustainably. Chickens, ducks, yurt, taro, personal solar panels, the whole deal. A few years back, Luke was in a serious boating accident and almost lost his life.
That accident for me changed everything about my life. Both my wife and I at that point sort of made a commitment to try and live in a more sustainable manner and resilient manner. We had this utopian idea of living on an acre of land and growing all of our food to try and be an inspiration for other people to go off grid, and then this realization that if everybody went off grid, it would be just totally terrible. 90% of the days my batteries are topped off in the middle of the day, and then almost 100% of what I'm producing is completely wasted. Whereas if I was on grid, that would be getting fed back into my neighbors. If I want our island to get to 100% renewable energy, then I got to be part of the system. I can't do it from here.
Here in Kauai is the perfect place to build a modern, renewable powered grid. There's lots of sun, fossil fuels are expensive, and an island can't rely on neighboring communities, because it's an island.
So that alone automatically ties us into this whole sustainable movement.
This is the mayor of Kauai.
Bernard Patrick Carvalho Jr., don't forget the junior.
He's a former Miami Dolphin and likes to use sports metaphors.
We're on the 10-yard line looking in, you better pass that ordinance or pass that policy because climate change is coming, and a field goal is unacceptable, by the way, only the touchdown here.
So Kauai is going for a touchdown.
70% of the entire island's energy use is our target by 2030, and we think we'll be there way sooner.
Sometimes the little speck has the determination to take a vision and work out all the details, and then take your footprint and you take it to the next level.
To sum up, sun, batteries, the future's in the grid, score touchdowns, little speck, big lessons, paradise.
The name of my island is Samsø.
One of the lessons of Samsø Island, located in Denmark's North Sea, is that if you're going to try to convince an entire population to give up fossil fuel, you better first get the cooperation of the village blacksmith.
I was a somewhat known person on the island, being engaged in politics and such things.
It was 1998. Samso, population 4,000, had just won a national contest with its bold plan to completely switch to renewable energy. Now, all the mayor had to do was do it.
I remember a story about him being interviewed, and the journalist will ask him, how are you going to achieve these pretty extensive goals? And the silence was a little too long maybe before he answered.
Many, like this electrician, worried about cost.
I wasn't very convinced. I was pretty skeptic about how it would be realizable in 10 years.
Others, like this farmer, had already tried renewable energy.
It isn't working.
But civic leaders hit the road, and with the blacksmith's help, convinced 450 residents to invest in wind power.
The rainwater.
Birgit Bjornvig was one of those leaders.
And the farmers understood that they could make money with the conditions that there were for producing wind power. And that's not a bad thing for a farmer either.
So they formed a cooperative and put up 2 windmills. The wind was strong, and the government's rates on power were good. Private investors put up 4 more mills. The municipality put up another 5. These first 11 mills not only produced more electricity than the entire island consumed, they paid themselves off in just a few years. And with those new profits, the islanders agreed to reinvest in more renewable energy.
Well, it's a district heating plant. It's based on straw. This straw comes from the farmers on the island. The straw is chopped up here and sent into the other room.
The farmers used to burn their fields at the end of the season. Now, their straw helped heat the town.
The pipes you see here is sucking in the straw that's being chopped up in the other room. Down here, the straw comes and being pushed into the oven. The straw is burned, it heats up the water, and the water is sent to the houses.
The island then built this solar heating plant and a third heating plant which burns wood chips. Suddenly, 75% of Samso no longer needed oil for heat.
There's no glue in them.
Remember the skeptical electrician? He began heating his home with wood pellets, but then found this.
This is my turbine, and I put it up in 2007.
He bought it used for $30,000. It now heats his home and...
This is my wife's electrical car. She uses it to go to work.
His own private windmill sells so much energy back to the grid, he'll pay it off in just 5 years.
We had lots of rain, so it's good.
And remember the farmer? Well, he was convinced to heat his water with solar panels.
15 square meters of solar panels for heating the house.
The water also helps heat his home. And combined with solar photovoltaics, his electricity power meter now runs backwards.
Today it's turning backwards because the solar panels are producing more than we are consuming in the house.
He also presses his own oil from rapeseed, the yellow flowering plant widely used in Denmark as a biofuel. You ever taste it?
Sure.
How is it?
Good. Not very hygienic, but it's tasting good. There we go.
He runs his Volkswagen on rapeseed oil. Looks like a regular old engine.
Yeah, sure. It is.
He even runs his tractor on it. Do you have to be a rich man to do all this?
No.
The people of Samso then launched their most ambitious project ever, 10 offshore windmills. Combined with everything else they were doing, these offshore mills produced so much power that Samso was now completely carbon neutral, meaning they produce more renewable carbon-free power than they consume.
We would much rather like to buy our energy from our neighbor, the farmer or another investor on the island than we would pay to the Middle East or an oil company. We just like the money to stay on the island.
They've now built their own energy institute, where experts from around the world come to study how the people of Samso achieved, in less than 10 years, what most of the world thinks can't be done. For World Focus, John Larson, Samso Island, Denmark.
Climate change is on a complete collision course right now with civilization as we know it.
We've had lots of civilizations collapse in the past from environmental causes.
I'm certain climate changes occur.
Our responses at the moment are inadequate in terms of coping with these newly displaced people.
These are really the human faces of climate change.
Nature is now at war with us.
We're going to have to rethink climate change as being some remote environmental issue that the scientists will work out over there.
It's so huge. It's so big that's coming our way. It's almost beyond comprehension.
We are the same human race, no difference.
We're dealing with the fact that there's a gap between what the law provides and what the world needs. People cross borders all the time.
That will change all sorts of equations. When you get scarce resources, or if you get a change so radical that people can't function, you have huge displacement.
The threat of refugees as a consequence of climate change is an enormous national security issue.
Europe is spending millions to defend itself against immigration from Africa.
When the Pentagon begins to think about what might happen, that's a clear indication that we have to start taking something seriously.
This is not a 100-year or 50-year issue, it's a present issue. It already is affecting the price of food you're putting on the table. It will affect the price of energy that you pay for your home and your automobile.
We can meet this challenge. We can transition to a low-carbon economy.
We can invent our way out of this problem.
We ought to be able to come together, not red versus blue, but in a red, white, and blue way.
The challenge is no longer to save the planet. The challenge now is to save civilization itself. And that is not a spectator sport.
Renewable energy is free energy and clean energy. Rail runs on renewable energy. We need more trains and less traffic. Rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America. That's it for Green TV today. I'm your host, Angela Trusty. We hope you'll join us next time.